What's up, friends? Doug Cunnington here. We're talking about getting more done in less time. Now, want to make sure everyone can hear me, but I'm going to go over a couple quick exercises that you could do that will hopefully help you get more stuff done in less time. I'm going to mention a couple of announcements as well. I know it takes a couple minutes for people to hop on, notifications come out or do not come out, but we're going to roll with it. I see Success Roller Coaster is on. Good to have you on. So, a couple things to mention. Now, there are a few links in the description, so check them out. One announcement I have today is the Productivity Masterclass is indeed out. That's one of the reasons I've been talking about productivity, and it's one of the reasons I'm talking about productivity today. Now, I'm not just going to try and push the course or anything like that because it's a beta version, and I actually need to limit the number of people in there so I could work with them individually. So this is going to be helpful, like most of my videos. A couple big things that people do to sort of, I guess, sabotage themselves when they're trying to get a lot done is they try to do too many things. And it's really difficult because here is the reality for most people. Let me know in the chat, by the way, if you're around. We got Furhan on. Welcome, one of the kind moderators and one of the new students. Thank you for hopping on. Good to have you on here. You'll notice a book of productivity, a stack of productivity books behind me, and I'll talk about those in a second. But the thing is, a lot of us are busy, right? So full-time job, you have a family. Maybe if you have a full-time job, you have to commute, and maybe you have other obligations. Maybe you have children, right? So that takes time just to spend time with them as well. And probably one of the most important things you could do, right? So it's not that you have to spend time with them. It's just that, it's reality. That's the time that you want to spend. Additionally, they may have like activities. Maybe you volunteer. Maybe you're like a coach for a team or something like that. Very, very common. If you have more than one child, you probably want to do that for multiple of the kids. That's a lot of time, and I could appreciate like how a person would have to balance. And then put on top of that, you may have to be driving back and forth depending on where you live. Driving back and forth to practices or that sort of thing could take just hours all alone. So the fact is we're all super, super busy. And it's very difficult to, get things done. Or if you just have a hobby, maybe you don't have kids, maybe you're trying to take, a pottery class after work and, spend time learning how to do, pottery. Maybe you want to learn a foreign language so you can take a trip. There's all these different constraints we have to deal with. The problem comes up when we try to do like way too many things. And we see other people, right, that are getting a whole lot of stuff done, and we don't see behind the scenes. That's just part of what this productivity course is going to be about, by the way, is you'll be able to see behind the scenes on what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, because it looks like externally that I am super well organized and getting a crazy amount done. I'm pretty organized in certain areas, but I still have the days where it's difficult to like figure out where to focus. So there's a couple exercises that you can do, and that's what I'll get to pretty quickly here. And let me know what's going on here in the chat. I'm going to come back to it. I'm just going to say hello to Charles, JK, Danish, hi, Anthony, and Duke as well. So I'm going to come back to the chat. So feel free to ask questions productivity related. If you can keep it productivity related, it'll be way more relevant than if you ask about affiliate marketing. So don't ask about affiliate marketing if you could help it. If you could help yourself. If you do have a question about affiliate marketing, Friday in the live session is the time to do it. Okay. So a couple quick things that I could point out to you. And it's really about understanding like the things that you need to get done. And you probably have them all in your head. And that's kind of helpful. However, I could tell you when you have a bunch of stuff going on in your head and you're storing all your ideas in your head and your to-do list and the things you have to do, and you're thinking about keywords perhaps, and you're thinking about taking your kids to practice, and you're thinking about, your boss who's been on your case trying to get you to do other stuff, and then your other boss, probably one of 4 or 5 bosses, is trying to help you get promoted, and there's just so much stuff going on. It's simply overwhelming. So one of the simplest things you could do is just a brain dump exercise. I didn't make it up. It's pretty common in different areas. You can do it in the form of like bullets, where you just jot down like different areas that you have tasks to do, right? So it could be like home tasks, and then you divide it up to like your own hobbies, like housework, long-term projects, and like, you know, projects for your children or something like that. You have work-related tasks, and maybe that is, a big project that you're working on, and maybe it's trying to get promoted, and then helping other people that work for you get promoted, right? So there could be various areas to work in, and you just, get it out of your brain, write it down. Now, you could do it in the form of a mind map if you appreciate that sort of structure. You could just get Post-it notes and do it that way. You can get a huge piece of paper and write it down. If you have a whiteboard, you can do that. It really doesn't matter what format. And again, in the Productivity Masterclass course, it's tool agnostic, right? So whatever you prefer, maybe you like to stand up and work on a whiteboard that's on the wall and just have that space, and you want to use different color markers. Maybe that inspires you. That's cool. I actually have different color pens, that is something. For whatever reason, I enjoy different color pens, even though I don't I don't have like a structure or method to the madness, because it doesn't matter. It's just a little fun for me to do. So if you could just get these ideas out of your head, you will feel better. Trust me. And a lot of times it only takes like 10 minutes or so. If you drink a lot of coffee, that is one of the secrets to my madness, is I consume a lot of caffeine, and then other times I just don't. I'll stop drinking it for a week or two, just to, reset and not be so amped up on the caffeine. But the point is, you could quickly get these ideas out of your head if you just stop, ignore everything else, and just write these things down. Max, it'll take you 30 minutes probably. Now, it doesn't mean that's everything, right? But if you just sit down, get rid of the distractions, write them down, you'll feel much better. Most of the time, it's really quick. And then you may think of other things later. Go back and add to it, right? You can go back and add to it, but usually you can't think of those secondary or tertiary things until you end up, writing out the main things that are bogging you down. So if you just do that, you'll be way better off. You won't be as overwhelmed and stressed out. And in fact, I could tell you, over the last few years, especially when I was just getting started online, I was like, actually, the situation that I described, except for the kids, is 100% accurate. So I was trying to get promoted at my job. I had a team of like 10 people working for me. I was learning stuff online. I had a few sites going, and I was trying to write a blog, niche site project. And I was really big into brewing beer, judging, and I was actually grading exams. So these are like, multi-page essays that I had to grade. And I would get like a stack of anywhere from actually it was about 12 to 14 typically, and it would take about 2 to 3 hours to grade each one. So I was doing this all at the same time, and we were also traveling a little bit. Okay, so I was doing all this stuff, and I was just, every now and then I'd get overwhelmed. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep. Maybe I was a little hungry. And my wife would say, you know what, just write everything down. And after I resisted a little while, I knew she was right. I would do the exercise myself anyway, but if someone else suggests it, sometimes you're resistant, and that is a symptom of being overwhelmed as well. So I wrote this stuff out, and then I was able to prioritize properly. And that's the thing that you get out of it. Now, don't focus on the prioritization until you get these ideas out of your head. Then you can figure out where they go in your master plan, right? But the key is to get these ideas out of your head. Now I'm going to hop back over to the chat for a moment here. And this is the main idea I'm trying to get out here. Just get these ideas out of your head. You could do it in the form of journaling. That's another nice way to do it, depending on if you're a journaling type person or if you're more of a bullet point type person. I go back and forth. It's nice to have a narrative to just get things out of your head, stream of consciousness. You don't have to filter it. You can come back and get the nuggets later. Now, I will talk about some of those books back there, but let me hop to the chat. Anthony asks, how many kids do I have? I don't have any kids, but I have a dog named Georgie. She's resting next to me. And Anthony asks, how much sleep do I get per day? Now, that depends. Ideally, I would love to get 8 hours per day, but depending on the season and what I have going on, I can get anywhere from 6 to 7.5 or 8. So I would actually like to get more, and I know that probably over the last month or so, publishing all these YouTube videos and doing other things, I think I've only been getting about 6.5 hours or so. But I definitely would prefer to get a little bit more, but a lot of times I'll just wake up early. I don't set an alarm, right? So I just wake up naturally. And I go to sleep fairly early, but I'll just wake up naturally, usually a little on the early side, usually before 6 a.m. And then a lot of times I'll get started, stretch out, make some coffee, do a little reading, walk the dog in the morning, and then I'll get down to work. Okay. Now, Amir, what's up? Good to have you on. Cool Stuff says, how can you build self-discipline, become more productive? Sometimes I have a lot of ideas during the day, but you end up watching a show on Netflix. You struggle with establishing self-discipline. Okay. I'm gonna talk about each of these books, but because you asked such a great question, The Power of Habit is a fantastic book. This one is by Charles Duhigg. I really enjoy his writing. He's very, very good. He puts a narrative around the research and facts, and it's like super easy to consume. He wrote another book that's on the bottom of the stack there called Smarter, Faster, Better. And each of these books have like a shorter, about 15-page appendix that tells you how to implement the stuff in the book. The way to build more self-discipline is to find a keystone habit. So this is early in the book, and he talks about like someone who quit smoking. I'm going to forget the details. I haven't read this in a little bit, specifically this anecdote that I'm about to tell you about. But basically, like someone was going to stop smoking. And what happened when they stopped smoking is they ended up doing a lot of other healthy things as well. So they ended up like exercising more and eating better and so on. Now, I can't remember the specific story, and it'll be a very boring thing to watch me look it up. But I believe, one of the other examples in here, and it may be related to the smoking example early on, is the exercise habit. So exercise is a huge thing, and I go to the gym like probably 4 to 7 times a week. So it varies. Sometimes I don't make the time. Sometimes I do something outside instead, but I always feel much better. The reason why I'm mentioning it is if you could just like go to the gym, even if you could just get yourself to go to the gym, right? And there's other techniques to do that. Even if it's a poor workout, you're building a habit, right? You're building the habit, and exercise is one of those magic habits that tends to have a cascading effect on other things. So if you can exercise a little bit, even if you start super small, cool stuff, right? So even if you start super small, you go outside, you walk for 5 minutes, perhaps instead of watching the show on Netflix, right? There's a lot of components you have going on in here. But if you can get yourself to exercise just a little bit, a lot of times you'll exercise a little bit more than you intended, and you're building the habit. And again, to build the self-discipline, it may be as simple as finding the keystone habit, which a lot of times for a lot of people is around exercise, and you feel better, right? You feel better like after you exercise, and it'll cascade to other areas. So maybe you eat a little bit better, which also makes you feel good. And then maybe, maybe you're making smarter financial decisions. Like if that is, a lot of people are like, oh, it'd be good if I like did something a little cheaper instead of blah. So you can make better financial decisions. And again, it's a keystone habit. So if you could find like a keystone habit, a lot of times many things get way better. So, and for me, I do think exercise is one of those deals where, like, if I'm in a bad mood, go exercise, right? There's almost zero times when I go out for a jog and feel worse afterwards, right? Unless I get injured, you always feel better after a jog. So, and that is, just one of those things. Okay. Next. And Fran says, you love paying for the gym. You can't seem to get to it. Yeah. So and like I said, if you could just get to the gym for a few minutes, and I probably, I said I go to the gym 4 to 7 times a week, and maybe 1 to 2 of those workouts are just me like barely getting my blood flowing, right? So I did this a couple days ago. I sort of ran out of time, and I just ran out of time, and I was like, you know what? I can go to the gym or not. And I got myself to go to the gym. I only worked out for like 15 minutes, and it was just like, it wasn't a run. It was like, those elliptical machines. I barely sweated. Just went in there, got the blood flowing a little bit, and I felt way better. I mean, it wasn't a good workout, but I still went. And I think that's the big thing. Okay. The other thing I want to show you real quick, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. And if you are interested in the productivity course, there is a link in the description, and there's a few details there to get you sort of started, but it is a beta, so it's a little rough around the edges, but that also means that you get to work with me a little bit more closely, and it also means that you help shape the material. So there was a pilot, and I'll just mention this. There was a pilot that I did in December, practically the worst time to try and launch a productivity course. January is a much better time to do it, but I thought, hey, I'm just going to go for it, right? There's no reason to wait. Let's do it right now. I don't want to I don't want to wait on this. Now's the time, right? There's no reason to wait. They help shape the material for what's been added into this beta version. So that's pretty cool. Going through the material, I have to make certain assumptions about what people want to learn. And then once I'm able to, show them that, turns out they wanted some other stuff as well. So I've added that, and I'm going to be able to put in more case studies. So that's pretty, I don't know, that's a pretty good advantage, I think. All right. I will share my screen real quick, and I do see a couple questions popping in. And then after I hit the questions, I'm going to talk about some of these books right behind me. So let's see how this screen sharing stuff is going to work for me. Cool. Reasonably well. All right. So first off, this is just sort of like the information about the course. So when you hop over here, a lot of it is actually in the description, but this outlines what is included in the course. So there are a few units, so 4 units total. Potentially going to add more. There will definitely be more lessons in the form of case studies. So those are a thing that people really like to see, and I understand. I mean, it's great to see. Taking theory into practice and how to actually apply it. Now, quick note is this is not in any form a niche site course, right? I don't cover affiliate marketing. There may be an example or two where I've implemented project management and a productivity technique on an affiliate site, but there's no affiliate material in here. So keep that in mind. I talk about the beta course and what that means. Quick note, there's no money back guarantee on this. So I want people who are in, right? And I understand the issues with that. This is beta, and I make it very clear here. I'm happy to, if there's some emergency or something like that, I'm a reasonable person. I think if you're watching this, you probably know that. So anyway, but it's not the standard guarantee, because I want you committed. I want people who are going to be able to go through the course and do the work. And this sort of helps select the right people for this. You get access right away. So I typically don't do that. And the thing is, you get access right away. There are exercises throughout, right? So there are exercises starting in lesson 1, and you need to do the exercises. I point that out, through everything. But basically, you're able to get your hands on everything, check out the case studies, consume it. But you got to do the work. You got to do the work at the end of the day. And just to give you a quick look on the inside, so it's a little welcome here inside the course. And there's a link to get over to the 2 live sessions. There are 2 live sessions just for the students there. And as a beta member, you get access to the future improvements. So that's one cool thing. The pilot folks sent them an email yesterday, let them know that they have access to the new material, and they're invited to the other live sessions. So this stuff is, I don't know, I think that's pretty valuable just overall. So part 1 is around working to focus, right? So it's around mindset, urgent importance, focusing, and then there's a live recorded session. Part 2 is around results and goals. I talk about efficiency and effectiveness, goals in general, and absorbing data and giving yourself time to think. Then we have actionable techniques, right? So this is Pomodoro, stacking, some other productivity techniques. Additionally, better to-do lists, doing the important work, right? So these are exercises on how to actually implement the ideas from part 1 and part 2. And last, applying project management. So that is, some of the stuff that people really ask for is project management. So I go over some of the basics while avoiding a lot of the, for lack of a better term, just jargon and corporate speak, because that's not really helpful for individuals or small teams. And if you just try to learn project management, you'll potentially end up in a bunch of just deep vocabulary that you don't need to know. I talk about prioritizing tasks. And then, of course, we'll look at the case study of the YouTube publishing sprint. So I published over 60 videos in like 28 or 30 days. I need to go back and look. I actually did a little bit more than I initially intended to, but I published a lot of content. The results were good. The viewership went up quite a bit. I'm excited to share that soon. Now, the thing is, I totally lost my train of thought. So anyway, that's a look inside the course. If you have any questions, let me know. And coming back to the chat, and then I'll talk about the books. Sound good? And if you have any questions on the productivity stuff that I mentioned, let me know. All right, Lorraine says, hats off to this guy. Your 6-month site does 100 per month. Just listen to his advice. Yep. And if you go back to live streams from like, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, you'll see Lorraine in there. So that's awesome. Really glad to hear it. Congrats. Anthony is allergic to the gym. Your body tends to sweat and induces heavy breathing. Nice. That means you're doing it right, man. All right. Pretty good jokes in here. Duke says you had the urge to exercise once, you rolled over and went back to sleep until it went away. I think that's good for your core, though. That rolling back and forth. That's a really good workout. D card's on. Brian says you appreciate the access to the new material when released. You don't feel like the other model of having to subscribe again for most of the same content when it's released. Yeah. Appreciate you saying that. And I think that's a key thing. It's a discounted price in the beta, and, people are taking a chance working with me on, material that has gone through some testing, but not a full amount of testing. So it's a pretty good amount of testing though. So don't worry. It's not, the worst part is When I recorded some of the videos, I had a cold. People may remember when I had a cold, so my voice sounds terrible. I'm gonna have to reshoot it at some point, but you can hear what I'm saying. So, all right. And the other question I see, Anthony says, "Do you give yourself a Slack day off, or to do anything or nothing, breaking away from your normal routine?" Yes, that is super important to take breaks. I am very guilty, like many other entrepreneur types, especially in the online area. We go like too long and don't give ourselves enough breaks. And I've seen it in my mastermind group. I've seen it with my friends, and of course with myself. Even when I tell them, hey, you should take a couple days off, clear your mind and stuff. But I just, part of it is like I enjoy it, and then the other part of it is there's always a little bit more to do, right? There's always a little bit more to do. But for example, a couple weeks ago, I turned off my laptop on Saturday in the middle of the day, and I didn't turn it back on until Monday. And I think I largely didn't check my phone on that Sunday. So it was a day off. My wife and I went hiking with our dog and sort of just check things out, right? And just I don't remember what else we did, but basically, you're able to clear your mind. And I think for me, it may actually take a few days. I think it's pretty common though to take a couple days to like detox, and I'm actually planning a short trip. Actually, it's a long-ish trip. Take that back. It's a long-ish trip coming up in like the summertime, right? So my wife and I had traveled a lot for a few years, and then we kind of buckled down for the last probably 2-ish years or so. And we're, excited to take a trip coming up here before too long. All right. Next, we got. Oh, Anthony, you're right. I did miss your question about napping during the day. Does it improve productivity? It depends on like, you know what it does for me in general, like if I can get some sleep. However, I usually don't take a nap. I'll usually go to the gym instead. So occasionally, like if I'm pretty tired or if I have a bit of a cold, I will opt for a nap instead of going to the gym. But for me, going to the gym gives me a lot of energy. And in fact, one of the books that I snagged, actually, it's the one that's right next to me. This one's called The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Pretty good book, actually, really good book. The exercise pill. The takeaway in the exercise pill is the amount of energy and focus that exercise provides you with in return for your time is incredible and easily worth the challenge of integrating an exercise routine into your life. After you feel how much of an impact exercise has on your brain, I think you'll want to continue with the routine, if only to make the feeling last. And yeah, like I mentioned before, really enjoy exercising and just, just getting out of the house. And I think for me, it's been a habit for quite a while. Okay. And cool. Hi about your site. Good to hear. Daniel says, you have a regular 8 to 5 job, 3 young kids, and you're working on a niche site. Is the productivity course something that would benefit me, considering you have so many things needing your attention every day? I think, I think so. If you want to, let me know more specifically, shoot me an email, Daniel at Doug at nichesiteproject.com, and we could talk through it more detailed. But in general, one of the ideas, and I think I mentioned it in in some of the sales material, but the reality is you're going to have to prioritize certain things and shift things around, right? And sometimes you may have to, deprioritize, sleep, right? Because you're obviously a busy person. You have a lot of stuff going on. So you may need to shift things around. And once you shift it around, I hope you'll be able to potentially like take the activities for the niche site, for example, right? Take the activities and then narrow it down to the very specific things that you have to do, and not, you know, not get distracted. So it would be obviously, your children and family would be one of the highest priorities. So you may shift things around there. And then when you only have a limited amount of time to work on your site, then for example, you could be able to prioritize that subset of activities. So is the productivity course something that would benefit you? It depends on how well you have that stuff like managed on your own, right? So if you feel like you can improve on productivity, then you probably can. If you think you have it mastered, then maybe the course won't be the exact right thing for you. But feel free to shoot me an email and I could, let you know specifically. All right. Anthony says, do I ever get a sense of anxiety when winding down from all the distractions since you service people and have businesses to run with a lot of moving parts? Yes, I do. And a lot of it is related to like email and comments, right? The community part, because it becomes difficult sometimes, right? Because I have a pretty small following compared to bigger people, which is a dumb statement once I say it out loud. So I have a fairly small following. However, for me, it's the biggest I've ever had, right? And it's been growing. So I get more questions than I ever have before. And I have been, and I still do. I answer basically every email I get unless someone is just, you know, slightly rude and ask for something. um, but even people that ask for stuff, if they're not rude, I'll typically reply back. And that is difficult to manage. Now, it may not be timely. In fact, I know it's not timely because like I said before to Daniel, like I have to prioritize stuff. So I have to make sure that, I'm servicing the community, being, I think I'm fairly polite in general. So that is me, right? I'm on camera enough. Like I think people know my personality if you've watched a few of these. So it'd be exhausting if I was acting in any fashion. And you probably also see me, right? So Anthony, you've been in a few of these. You probably see me get frustrated too. That is also real. I wish I could suppress that a little bit more, but sometimes I can't. So the point is, do I get anxiety? Yeah, I wouldn't call it like, because I know some people actually suffer from like anxiety where it really gets them down. Me, I just get a little annoyed, maybe a little frustrated or something like that. But I usually am okay with it. So is a real anxiety like debilitating? No, it's more like, all right, I need to take a break. I'm going to go on that run. I'm going to go take the dog for a walk and throw the ball or whatever, right? So I'll definitely see that I'm getting to that point, but typically it is around just trying to like be a nice guy at scale, right? And that means like trying to reply back to all the comments, try to reply back to all the emails. And when you're getting like so many per day, it's difficult. And then the other, I'll shut up about this, but the other part is sometimes someone will say, hey, they'll explain their situation and they'll say, hey, can you please just take a look at my site and let me know what you think? And that's really, I simply don't have the time, right? Like I said, I'm trying to be a nice guy, but I don't have the time. And if I did that every time someone asks, that's kind of all I would be doing, right? And I have, literally customers, students who are working with me, and those folks get the priority to have the bat phone type email address so they can get to me. In the productivity course, there's Skype, right? Like we have a Skype group. Um, so that is a thing I'm testing, over Facebook. And I mentioned it in the material. Facebook can be a huge distraction. Productivity is about avoiding distraction in a lot of ways. So we're trying Skype. Skype can be a distraction too. But for me, it's like the intention of Skype is not to distract you. And Facebook is literally like they have engineers and behavior engineers like trying to figure out how to keep you on there longer, and they're really good at it. They know what you're looking at. So anyway, Anthony, yeah, sometimes. All right. Okay. I see a couple other questions in there. So I'm going to hit other Anthony's question. Anthony says, how often do I check my email? Way too often. If I'm doing it right, I'm checking it like 4 times a day, but I typically can't help myself. So I end up checking my email like 40 times a day or something like that. I'll check on my phone, and I should probably limit it a little bit more, but it is one of the things. So even like when I'm at the gym, there's like really good Wi-Fi. I'm on YouTube watching videos and stuff, and I will check my email. So if something pops through, I'll check my email. So way too often, and I have been adding a VA component to help me manage email. So I have an assistant for certain types of emails, and it's really just about sorting ahead of time. And then for the emails that are sort of like common questions, and this is for like course material. So it takes a long time to teach someone the material of the course. So I've been working with someone for months, and yeah, it's definitely helped in certain areas with the email management. And Lucas says, what were my working hours on my part-time business when I worked full-time? You're knackered when you come home from a stressful job. Cool. Totally understand, Lucas. The answer to your real question there is you can potentially try and wake up earlier to work on your stuff, right? To work on your own project, right? So if you're working on your own project in the morning, then you'll be a little more tired at work. And then, at least you're spending your time on your stuff, right? That's what I did. How many hours was I working on the part-time business when I worked on the full-time? Anywhere from like 1 to 10 hours a day, right? So it depended on what I had going on. And, if it was a weekend, especially when I was getting started, I would maybe wake up early, work for several hours, hang out with my wife, do normal stuff on the weekend. And then in the evening, I would work on it some more. So, I mean, you probably know how it is. You're so pumped and like excited about certain things, and you can just work on it longer when it's your own project, right? When it's your boss telling you to do something where that it's just going to be thrown away at the end of the day, working on a report that's never going to be presented, that sort of thing. It's really hard to motivate yourself. But if you're working on your own site, you're looking up keywords and all that stuff, like that's exciting, right? All right. And then Matthew says he appreciates the fast response the other day. Yeah, appreciate you saying that, Matthew. And you say to get more done, you take the battery out of your phone. It's been like a week now. Oh, that's amazing, man. Yeah. Like if you if you can get away from the distractions on your phone, you can really get a lot done. Anthony says you find you lose a lot of time working on the cosmetic design of a website. How important is a design for a niche site? How legit? Okay, so that's a cool way to get a niche site question in there. Not that important. Not that important. And that is, part of the key, that that is something that I go into in 5-figure niche site, right? So that's the affiliate site course. The productivity course is about looking at that on a grand scale for like all the things that are taking up your time and distractions. So, when it comes down to it, how important is the cosmetic design of your site, or how important is it for me to wear stylish clothes, right? So I have a lot of these black t-shirts. I have a bunch of just plain t-shirts. It's pretty, easy for me to just look presentable enough. You can also see I don't waste too much time shaving either. So, it just needs to be good enough, much like my appearance for most of these videos. And sometimes you'll see it's a little rougher than other times. All right, I'm going to get to the book. So it looks like the questions have slowed down just a tad. So Productivity Project by Chris Bailey, really good book. Accomplishing more by managing your time, attention, and energy. And you'll notice when you read a lot of these different books on similar topics, around like productivity or working or habits or whatever, they cite a lot of the same research studies, and they cite a lot of the same like ideas and stories, which is cool because you have it reinforced over and over and over again. And you know, the more you see something cited, sort of the more legitimacy it has, at least from a psychological standpoint. This one, Checklist Manifesto, I actually got this one way back when I went to a project management workshop and like an old client that I worked at. It's a very big, very huge telecom company, and they are based out of like Dallas and Atlanta. So if you looked it up, you could figure out which one it was. But I went to like the IT project management, like I can't remember. It was like a 2-day sort of internal conference. There were speakers and stuff like that, and they gave everyone the Checklist Manifesto, which is cool. And I don't know why some of my coworkers, they didn't even pick up one of the free copies. I'm like, it's a free book. It's like a New York Times bestseller. Like, just grab it. It's free. So pretty good book. 4-Hour Work Week, of course. And I, read this a little late to the party. Santiago's on. What's up? Good to have you on. There's some great ideas in here. There was a great podcast a couple weeks ago, Tim Ferriss on his podcast, he did like the 4-Hour Work Week revisited and sort of talks about it. And then there was a response by the Tropical MBA, another podcast. I don't listen to many podcasts anymore, but those are two that I do listen to. And yeah, it's interesting. There's a tone and the voice in which this book is written does come off a little abrasive. And I think Tim mentions it, they mention it as well. So if you can get past that and get past like sort of, it's hard to read a tone, right, into like words on a written page or an email. However, the thing is you can get some great ideas out of it. So if you can get past like the voice that it's written in, it's pretty good. And there are like, if you tried to apply the ideas directly out of the 4-Hour Work Week right now, like that, some of the action steps on drop shipping or something like that, or if you're trying to like outsource your life, right? There's a whole chapter on that. You're going to struggle a little bit. It was very interesting in 2007. But nowadays, like the specifics have changed, but the principles are indeed the same. So, okay. Next one is deep work. I've talked about this one a lot, Cal Newport. And this is, right into what Matthew was saying about taking the phone out of your battery. Cal Newport like dropped off his social media, and he's a computer scientist, like professor, right? A computer science professor in, I can't remember, I think maybe MIT, but I mean, it's all about getting deep work done. And a lot of productivity is really just about like limiting your distractions and working on the right things, right? Like it's that simple. It's very straightforward. It's very hard to do though. It's just super hard to do. And even, when I'm trying to do it, if I can just get, 1 to 2 days per week of like real deep work done, that's basically all I need. It's kind of amazing. You can get so much done if you could focus for a short time. All right. Anthony says, can I list all the books that I just spoke about in the description of the video? Sure. Good call. Outliers. The Story of Success is a Malcolm Gladwell book, another awesome writer. And I mean, this isn't specifically about productivity, but it does talk about like, I guess, just being excellent at certain things. And you start to understand about like the focus that people give things. And trying to think if there's any other details in here, but Outliers, kind of closely related to Peak. So Peak is by Anders Ericsson, and the 10,000 hour rule, which is referenced in Outliers, right? The person who did the research and the study is Anders Ericsson, right? So it's sort of, they had a little debate, right? They sort of take different angles at it. Anders Ericsson is more of a, research professor, and that's comes from that angle. Malcolm Gladwell is a journalist. So they kind of like Malcolm Gladwell simplified the ideas, but he wrote this book, a decade-ish earlier. And this book, Peak, well, it's a little bit newer and it's straight from, Anders Ericsson. All right. Just taking a look at the chat over here. And two books that go hand in hand. So The One Thing and Essentialism. If I had to pick one, I think I like Essentialism better, even though I read it afterwards. So it's by Greg McKeown. And I just enjoy the narrative in Essentialism better than The One Thing. They're generally kind of the same ideas you could imagine from the names. They're both black and white with some red on them. So kind of funny. They're both really good books. They're both new, or I guess The One Thing is a Wall Street Journal bestseller, and Essentialism is a New York Times bestseller. If you care about, which one you check out. And yeah, I would if you have time, if you're a reader, I would go through both of them, but I slightly favor Essentialism, and I read this in the last year. And finally, and I have a few other books. These are just the ones that I could carry. Smarter, Faster, Better. You can see I've taken a lot of notes and marked this one up. Again, another Charles Duhigg. And I was super excited when this one came out. I think I pre-ordered it and stuff. And yeah, really, really enjoyed that one. Again, Charles Duhigg, great writer. And, basically, if I just kept rereading these books, this set, and implementing certain things, that would be great. I wouldn't need to read any other books. Okay. Cool Stuff says, what do I think about the nomadic lifestyle? Today, we have a lot of people calling yourself a digital nomad. Can a person stay on the same level of productivity traveling around the world? Sure. But everyone's different, right? So everyone's a little bit different. I think the key thing that you would have to do is have a home base for periods of time. And this is sort of the nomadic. I wasn't a digital nomad. My wife and I traveled some, but we did a slow travel thing that was suited for our just our preference overall, right? So we would rent a house in a city from a month to 6 weeks or so, and we would live there, right? Then if you're there for that long, you don't have to fit stuff in. Although while I was there, I took every Friday off, a lot. I took a lot of days off, but that also meant when I wasn't traveling that I was banking those days. Now, that was back when I had a corporate job. And I was super productive during that period because I was, waking up early. I was getting stuff done for my online business. I was operating really at a high level for the corporate job. During that period, I got promoted. I had a big team working for me, like I mentioned before, and I was doing extra stuff. I was doing exceptional, right? And I was doing all this stuff at the same time. So it's definitely possible. And the key for me, right? And I think this could be, the more people I talk to, this could be the key where if you just set up base for a little while, you're going to be okay. And then you can get a lot of stuff done. You can, take the deep work approach and work very hard for a shorter amount of time, not get distracted, start leaving stuff out that is not important. Things that, maybe you thought you needed to do, but really you don't need to do them. And then you can get a lot done. And I'll give you a couple examples. So I have a couple friends. They've been on the channel, by the way. So Zoe Ariel on YouTube. And if you just search for Zoe on my channel, you'll find her. Actually, she has a huge channel. So if you just search for Zoe Ariel, you'll find her for sure. And then Mackenzie Fly, they both were sort of digital nomads, right? But they, more recently have set up base, and they want to have a spot where it's more stable. They don't want to live out of their suitcase, and they're ready to get some work done, So the stability is really helpful if you're trying to, focus on another area, because traveling takes away from your focus. Anthony says, do I listen to audio books when jogging? No. So I used to listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks, but I don't listen to audiobooks much anymore. I read them straight up now, out of either on my Kindle or a book. So if I know it's a good book or if I've already read it, I'll buy a print book. So like a lot of these books, I probably, not all of them, but the majority, I read them. I read the ebook version ahead of time, and then I bought the physical book because I liked it so much. Others, for example, like Outliers, it's been out for a while. So I went to eBay and I bought this book used for like $4, right? I bought like several Malcolm Gladwell books for like $4 each, free shipping, which is insane. It's practically brand new, right? I mean, people read a book and then they take it to like Goodwill or they donate it to, Salvation Army or something, and you could buy them for super cheap. So if the book's been out for a while, check on eBay. You can get them for really cheap. But and then in general, like when I'm jogging, if I'm outside, I don't listen to anything. It's sort of like meditation outside. And when I'm on a treadmill or if I'm at the gym, I'm probably watching YouTube or something like that just because, you know, the Wi-Fi is really fast and I can. Anthony says, you notice you've been pumping out a lot of content and videos. Thanks. Yeah. More than about 2 videos a day over the month. What changed from the past and what allowed you to free up more time to be more productive? It's in the course overall, right? So it's in the course, but it's setting up systems and testing them ahead of time and then finding the weak spots, fixing the weak spots, and then turning it up. And that's really all. I mean, I didn't free up more time. I technically wasn't more productive. When you look at, oh, you know what? I'm more effective, right? So I'm producing more with either the same or less output. So I've done basically the same thing. It's just been a steady effort. And the key thing is to implement a system and then push through it, right? So it's literally what I did in my day job for years. I did management consulting for a bit, and you show up somewhere, you analyze like their system or their workflow. It could be software, it could be in a warehouse, it could be supply chain stuff through a warehouse with a power company, which is an actual real project I was on. And it's really, it's the same stuff. You take a look at the as is, what you're working on, you look at where you want to be, you close the gap, you do a gap analysis, right? So I leave out some of these details, but basically I tested the system, ramped it up. The areas where I was really the bottleneck, right? You're always the bottleneck. The areas where I was really the bottleneck, I got out of that area and then found people that were better at it and could do it cheaper than me. And then that's it. Yeah. So, and then Anthony also asked, how does a productivity course relate to people with kids, family, and full-time jobs? So it relates to everyone, and it's agnostic to tools. It doesn't matter, if you're working on a niche site or if you're trying to get promoted at work or you want to take these things and implement it like at your full-time job, right? But it's it's generalized, right? And that's a key thing. So I keep it generalized, and all the books that I just mentioned, it's like a curation and consolidation. Like I put all those ideas in my head and then pumped out like what I knew with project management and my personal experience, and that's what came out, right? So I curated the information. I've added my own examples, added my own stories and how I implemented certain things, and then take you through the exercises. So typically, like if you go through the exercises, it will clarify for you your priorities and what you should be working on. And then you could take that from like a general sense, kids, family, job, side project, and then you could go deeper dive into each one of those areas to figure out what you need to work on and how to prioritize it. And Colorado, I forget your name, Colorado, Starts with a B, maybe. I can't remember. Sorry. You're watching about 3 videos a day, so I need to pick up the pace. Well, I'm just about to slow down. So the one of the other key things, right? So I did this sprint of work and published a lot of videos. And when March comes around, which is tomorrow, I'm gonna slow it back down, right? So there's some other areas that I need to work on. And when you do a big like push of work, a sprint of work like I've done, and I just have a couple part-time VAs putting in, I think total it's probably under 25 hours a week people are helping me cumulatively, so under 25 hours. And we're going to scale it down a little bit and assess what we've done. So that is another important thing from a project management standpoint, is to you do the project, in this case publish a bunch of videos in a month, and then see what the results are, right? So we need to evaluate what's going on. Was it worthwhile? What happened when we did certain things? When you do a lot of work all at once, you're able to learn a lot. You're able to take that information afterwards, the sort of the wrap up, a post project meeting, if you will, and then figure out what to do next. So if I just kept publishing all these videos blindly, well, I'd go crazy, number one. But you could you can do things a little bit smarter, and I can make sure I'm publishing the right kind of videos. And I got a ton of data out of this. So, and I can't remember, but there's a lot of different ways to take a look at the analytics, but the watch time went up a significant amount over the past month. So, okay, any other questions? And if people, I see we have like 25 folks on. So the punchline to the whole thing is to write out all your tasks, right? Like do a brain dump, get everything out of your head that you can. If it's your home life and different areas that you have going on, you have maybe your parents are a little bit older, and you have like aunts and uncles around as well, and then you have your kids, and then you have your job, and then of course your friends that you want to spend time with as well, and then you have your side project that you want to work on. Like get everything out of your head. Don't try and do everything. It's really not going to help out if you try and do everything. And I see Furhan is on it. I want to thank the kind moderators, Furhan and Duke. Appreciate it. Everyone give those guys a shout. It'd be a mess in here if they weren't here. And yeah, any other productivity questions? And again, if you're interested in the course, it's a beta course. It's a little rough around the edges. It's pretty solid though. I think it's pretty solid. As a beta member, you help shape the material. You help me test the material that's in there, and you help shape the new material. So the folks that went through the pilot course, they said they wanted to see more project management stuff. So I put in a whole project management unit, and based on the information I get from the beta group, I'll probably either add more material into the project management section or provide more case studies. So that is a sort of thing you get in the beta group. Or, the other aspect, honestly, people weren't highly interested in this angle, but I think it's pretty cool. You get to see sort of the other side, like the internal workings of a course being launched, right? So a lot of people are interested in courses in some fashion, and it is not necessarily easy to do, but it's not super complicated. So I, in fact, share the numbers, right? I share the marketing numbers, conversion rates, and stuff like that, as well as like the actual revenue and stuff. So that's interesting for a lot of people. Although, like I said, people weren't super interested in the pilot, but there was a course that I took. It was another, I guess it was a beta course, but it was actually a pilot type situation. But I took that course by Derek Halpern, and it was good. I got to interact with him. I spoke with him on the phone a couple times. There were some group meetings, but much the same as the way I've outlined this, right? One of the reasons I took his beta course is so I could see how he ran a beta course, right? That was highly valuable to me, just to see the inner workings of like how he was doing things and when, and just working with the other people in the group. So pretty cool. Okay. Anthony says, is there a community spot for people in the 5-figure niche community to keep this and other discussions going, like a Facebook group? Yeah, there. Yep. And Furhan mentions there is a Facebook group for students of 5-figure niche site. And that is an awesome networking like area. And this is so there's another Facebook group. There's a free Facebook group, but the problem, Anthony, with the free Facebook group is anyone basically can get in there, right? So there's high value in being able to interact with people that have skin in the game. And it's an unfortunate you know, I guess observation, but it's real, right? Like I've definitely enrolled in courses, and I have like taken, I guess it was sort of like a mastermind group course situation, just to get access to the other people in there, and it's really important to have that sort of like-minded group. So yeah, and if you find just a free Facebook group, sometimes it's not the best. In mine, I hardly even, I don't do much with it at all. All right. If you have questions about just general stuff, non-productivity related, that'll be for Friday. In Colorado is asking, how much time do I invest in a niche research before starting a new site? I don't know. I'm not sure. However long it takes. So bad answer. Bad answer, but it's in the course in 5-figure niche site. You have 3 weeks to do a bunch of brainstorming and check it out. Anthony says, what productivity things am I working on? Well, I'm launching a course, but I don't think that's what you're asking. You want to rephrase it a little bit? Yeah, I'm not really sure what you're asking about. Or are you asking just in general, what am I working on? And in other news, I know a couple people probably saw some of the videos that or one of the live streams I worked on yesterday, where I talked about my hosting issues. And, sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes you try and be productive and you have a list of 4 things that you want to work on. And then, unfortunately, sometimes your hosting goes down or there's some issue. And that actually happened to me in the last couple days. I'm not 100% sure what the issue is, but I upgraded my hosting to see if that was the issue. And I'll let you know. So if you happen to catch that stream yesterday, I upgraded my hosting and it seems to have helped. WordPress is a funny thing in that everything's fine, right? Everything's running fine for a while. And then if you hit a certain number of users, and I've seen this on a few sites a few times, so I'm just now putting it together. But I feel like if you hit a certain number of sessions, the site just kind of goes to crap, right? Like your CPU usage is at, for me, it was at like 5-6% most of the time. Then all of a sudden it went up to about, I don't know, 99 to 100%, and it's just spiked. And when I take a look, it actually corresponds with just a little bit more traffic over a couple days. And like I said, I've seen this on a couple sites on different hosting companies, and I think it may have actually been just more users on the sites on the server than normal. Just a little bit, not a ton, just a couple more, and I think it hits a threshold. So I doubled it. I added more, CPU and memory, And instead of at 99%, it seems to be stable and running at about 40%. So I think it may still be a little underpowered, but we'll see how it goes. And Furhan says you're interested to find out about the hosting. One of the sites that Furhan has, with one host, it switched the host and the resource usage almost doubled. The new host couldn't find the issue, but upgraded the hosting free of charge. Cool. And the other thing is you notice with Lightspeed hosting and Lightspeed cache, the resource usage goes down a lot. Okay, good to know. I do. It's interesting. I do have Lightspeed with my MDD hosting, and that's where I was having the issue. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think maybe that would be something that I need to look into because I mean, they install Lightspeed cache automatically, but I need to make sure it's on all the sites, I guess. Anthony says, "Do I set tangible productivity goals for yourself, or do I just keep trying to do things smarter as you go? Are you trying to make more income and more passive?" That is sort of in all those cases. I am working on like a variety of different areas. In general, all of those, right? So I'm always I try and set tangible, like measurable goals so that I know if I'm getting closer. I try and break those down as well. I try and do things better as I go as well. And in general, I'm trying to make more income and make certain areas more passive. So yes, on all those accounts. The specifics, I actually struggle coming up with some of the specifics because things change so fast in the area that I'm working in. So if you if you followed me for a while, you know, in 2015 I got laid off, and then in 2017 sold a site for like multi six figures with a partner of mine and had a very good year. So things escalate quickly. So when you set goal, and this has happened with my mastermind group as well, we set goals and then we did really well. Like we did better than what we were trying to accomplish. So it's hard to like reset and get into the right framing. So hope that makes sense. Okay, cool. I think I'm out of here. The questions seem to have slowed down a little bit. So thanks for joining in. If you have questions about the course, feel free to ask like in the comments, or you can shoot me an email. And otherwise, we'll catch you probably on Friday. Maybe sooner. I may do more just like random live streams. So, okay. We'll see you later. Everyone have a great day.